And welcome to the 15th District Judicial Forum for Division E candidates, sponsored by the Lafayette Democratic Parish Executive Committee. I'm Teresa Roloff, filling in for Sally Donlin temporarily, and I will be moderating for a little while. Today we're offering the public a glimpse of the candidates for judge in the 15th Judicial District, Division E. There are 3 people in the race, and we're happy to have all 3 here tonight to answer a few questions. The questions are designed to give each of the candidates an opportunity to express his or her position on issues relevant to voters. Candidates have not seen the questions in advance. First, some housekeeping. Please take this time to silence your cell phones and even perhaps put them away for the next hour or so that we can more closely focus on the business at hand. Next, the format. The candidates are asked not to address each other directly, as this is a forum and not a debate. Responses will be limited to 1 minute each, strictly enforced by the timekeeper, Teresa Roloff, and that's me. I will give you as candidates a 10-second warning, like this, and then stop you with a warning shot if you go over a 1 minute time limit. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Sally Donlin.
Our process tonight will be to give each candidate in alphabetical order 1 minute to introduce him or herself. We'll give each candidate, again in alphabetical order, 2 minutes for closing remarks. In between the intro and the closing, we will pose questions to each candidate in a rotating order, and all candidates will be asked to respond to the same questions. Now, let's hear from our candidates. Please introduce yourselves, beginning with Mr. Mark Babineau.
Yes, my name is Mark Babineau. I'm an attorney for 36 years here in the 15th Judicial District. I have experience in administrative, criminal, and civil law, jury trial experience in both as a plaintiff and defendant, appellate court experience as both an appellant and appellee, and I look forward to serving as District Judge, Division E.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Babineau. Ms. Bro.
Good evening, I am Michelle Bro, and I am happy to be here, first of all, and I would like to thank AOC for hosting this particular event. I have been an attorney for 24 years. 19 of those I have been an assistant district attorney. 19 I've served as the city magistrate for the town of Scott. I have also had a solo practice for the past 22 years of those 24 years. I have done also appellate work, and I ended my career as an assistant district attorney at the Supreme Court with oral arguments. Again, I think with this evening, I will have the opportunity to have the public learn a little bit about me and my issues. Again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Bro. Ms. Garrett.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow colleagues. Thank you, DPEC, for hosting this forum. My name is Valerie Gotch Garrett, and I am proud to be a candidate for District Court Judge. I was born and raised in North Lafayette. I graduated from Holy Rosary, USL, and Southern Law School. I'm a mother of 5 grown children and a grandmother of 4 amazing grandchildren. My husband and I love this community. We work diligently here. I've worked hard to put myself through law school while raising my children and fishing and hunting to feed them. I am a solo practitioner as well as a partner in a law firm. I am an award-winning family lawyer for the service that I've given to Louisiana's working people. I am a criminal and civil litigant. I have experience in the appellate as well as in the jury trials. I am working very hard for the past 20 years to serve Louisiana and the community as a community leader and as a litigant.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Okay, now we start with the questions. And the first question will first go to Ms. Bro. We all know how technology has changed the way that we access certain services and institutions. How can technology be better used in the courts to make the system more user-friendly to the general public?
Well, City Court here in Lafayette has implemented the use of technology probably about 5 years ago, and maybe a little bit longer. And what they do is they maintain the dockets on the computer. The clerks are set up as well as the judges are set up. So the entire system are maintained by technology. They also are able, and we are getting that in the district courts, to see this also on live screen. I have been fortunate enough to where in my practice as an assistant district attorney, where we have people that are incarcerated, we are able to get these individuals, instead of having them transported for a hearing, to have them testify, questioned by video. So the use of that technology for us has helped with not only transportation, but also efficiency.
Thank you. Okay. Same question goes to Ms. Garrett. Would you like me to repeat?
Please.
We all know how technology has changed the way that we access certain services and institutions. How can technology be better used in the courts to make the system more user-friendly to the general public?
The majority of my practice is in district court, and the majority of my practice is criminal and family law. I think that having real time, it's really important, because at that point, the court can hear on an ongoing basis the testimony that's happening. We now have access to the clerk system, so you can have access to the clerk database. I think that's the most user-friendly technology now that we have, which is really a good system, so that you can access documents from the clerks sitting in your home. You just simply have to pay for the services. As we move forward, it is necessary, I think, for us to be more technologically savvy, because I think as you practice law, user-friendly devices help us facilitate knowledge, getting to the court system and being able to access the court systems.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Garrett. Mr. Babineau, would you like me to repeat, or are you?
Yes, you can.
Okay, we all know how technology has changed the way that we access certain services and institutions. How can technology be better used in the courts to make the system more user-friendly to the general public?
Well, on a number of levels, I've seen a lot of improvement over the years. As a law clerk, appreciate the idea of having what we call fast case, which increases the amount of time that we can shortens the amount of time that we can allow in updating ourselves on the recent developments in the law. Also, we have universal access pretty much to the clerk's records. You can do a lot of title examination, etc., from your office rather than having to go to the clerk's office. Also, as the others have mentioned, real time is pretty good. You don't even have to take the file with you to court for confirmations, etc. These type of things. You can do your research at the with the hard file, with the hard copy, and you can actually just go to the courtroom and ask upon presentation that your judgment be signed. So things are working up for a fair hearing.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, now that we've gotten our feet wet, okay, I will repeat the question if you request it, okay? The second question, we will begin with Ms. Garrett, and that question is, violent crime is perceived to be at crisis level. Is there actually more violent crime than ever before, or is this perceived view created at least partially by media attention? What does your experience within the legal system tell you about the validity of this perception?
I believe that the perception is an accurate one. I started my practice in juvenile court as a public defender, and as I proceeded through the misdemeanor courts and the felony court systems, we're seeing more violence than we've probably seen in Lafayette Parish for the past 10 years. I think that fear and anxiety and economics have driven our community to a degree that they are frightful and afraid. I think we tend to respond rather than think, and I believe that there is more violent crimes, particularly domestic violence, that is occurring in the homes. Whatever the motivation that it occurs, it is occurring. I handle as a public defender at least an average of 200 cases per year, and I handle a significant amount of LWOP cases, which are the serious offenses. So it is a growing concern.
Thank you. Next, for the same question, we go to Mark Babineau.
I do believe that a lot has to do with perception. I know one of the questions that was posed, there's a lot that is involved in every individual case, and you can't really prejudge a situation until it would come before you. And so as far as the judiciary is concerned in a position as a judge, I think as much as the perception may be that there's a lot of violence, you can only handle one case at a time, and you can only make that determination of that case by the facts that are presented at that particular time. So, I mean, if you look at the statistics, I mean, if you look at the number of people who are killed on the streets of the United States, it probably equals the amount of all of the war casualties we've had in both Gulf Wars and Afghanistan. So that's also a perception.
Thank you so much. Okay. And finally, Ms. Rowe, same question.
Thank you. Well, as I stated earlier in my opening, I've been privileged enough to serve in the District Attorney's Office for the past 19 years, and my concentration has been in the juvenile division. When I first started there, the possession charges, possession of marijuana up to simple burglary, were major offenses, and they still are. But today, my average caseload with a docket of 75 to 100, I would have 3 armed robberies on one docket, and I would have several sexual offenses. So in the juvenile division, I do believe that the violent crime has gone up. Now, statistics show that it's a bell curve. And since the 80s and the 90s, the bell has dropped and it's coming down. If you look at the statistics in Lafayette Parish Correctional Center, 64% of the people incarcerated are misdemeanor offenses. So, with that said, I think there is a perception that the violent crime has gone up, but statistics show otherwise.
Thank you so much. Okay. Our next round, we will begin with Mr. Babineau. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
I've said before that the district judges are in a position of public service and not really public relations. I think the concept and the appearance of the court system in relation to its public relations is a responsibility of not only the judges, but all of the court personnel and the lawyers involved in the cases. There's a lot of misconception about what the depth and purpose of a legal proceeding is, and unfortunately we have a lot of media sensationalism that tends to distort the true character of the case that may come before the court. So we have to be very, very careful in our perception of the legal process as court officials.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay. Same question goes to Ms. Rowe.
May I ask you to repeat that, please?
Sure. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts?
Okay.
If so, how?
Okay. And I think the key word in that particular question is the word obligation. Do judges have that obligation? The judges are bound by what we call a judicial code of conduct. And we have canons within which we have to abide by. And Canon 1 specifically gives us that guideline within which we have to follow. And it talks about maintaining integrity, maintaining impartiality, and basically how the judge is to serve. I think that we have to follow that particular code of conduct. At the same time, making the public aware and giving them a better understanding. Judges do have efforts, ways and efforts to apprise the public of what is going on. And I truly believe that through the bench and from the bench, we can educate the public in better understanding our court system.
Thank you so much. Okay, same question to Ms. Garrett.
I believe that, more importantly, that we have to remember the judges are public servants. We don't get to the bench without the vote of the people. The people are what is primary driven, as well as the law. If we don't do outreach to our community, how will they ever know? How will the children ever know what court we serve? As a matter of fact, earlier this year, we did a program called The Color of Justice, which educates and outreaches to young people what we do with the court, what the judges do. And I think that type of outreach, the women judges do it. I think the type of outreach is really important. It tells them how to get to the bench. It tells them the road to get to becoming a lawyer. It tells us how we are to conduct ourselves in the courtroom. So it's really important for the judges to do outreach into the community and educate our community about what we do.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I have to thank Ms. Bro because you've led me right into our next question. Okay, and you answer this first. Okay, we go first to Ms. Bro. Under the Code of Judicial Conduct, candidates are prohibited from directly soliciting campaign contributions. However, committees tend to work closely with candidates, so you actually know in many cases who is financially supporting your campaign. Under what circumstances would you recuse yourself from a case that involved a campaign donor?
Well, as we all know, the most difficult part in any campaign is fundraising. And it's also the most humbling aspect of a campaign is fundraising. But also it is a necessary component within which to seek whatever position that you are seeking. And I think that each one needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And that is the reason why we have a procedure for recusal. That mechanism is set up so that if a litigant comes before the court and feels that because of a campaign donation that was made, that the judge cannot be impartial, that they go through the procedure of the recusal. And at that time, that is tried and heard by another judge, and that decision will be made. So, with that procedure in place, I do believe that that's a safeguard for all participants.
Thank you. And Ms. Garrett, same question.
I believe that if there was a situation where a campaign donor would expect a certain outcome in the case, then I would not need to do anything else but recuse myself. Because if there's a certain expectation other than what the law provides, then that is unacceptable behavior. And I think at that particular moment, it is the court's responsibility not only to say that I can no longer hear this case, or even if there was an expectation, then the court has an obligation to say I'm going to follow my own recusal and remove myself from the case. Because no one should expect anything from the court except the court to follow the law.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we go to Mr. Babineau for the same question.
Right. The motion to recuse is available to any party at any time. Even the judge on his own motion can make that. If it's not resolved voluntarily, then it is heard before another judge. And each case is pretty much determined on its own merits. I'm not so much concerned about getting contributions from lawyers because lawyers and judges are expected to understand their roles in the process. It's not the lawyer's case, it's the litigant's case. And I'm more concerned about the effect that these contributions from litigants have rather than from the lawyers who represent them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we go into the next round. And we begin this round with Ms. Garrett. Louisiana has a terrible record on domestic violence and of women dying while under protective order. How would you support a coordinated community response to address these deplorable statistics?
I believe that it's necessary to engage law enforcement, to engage the court, to engage the attorneys, to engage the criminal prosecutors, to engage community outreach programs, to bring everybody to the table to sit down and have a discussion about what we can, and our legislatures, to determine what steps we can put in place that will address safeguards. Because at the same time we have these issues are of grave concern, we have people who abuse those systems as well. And so then it becomes very difficult to make good decisions based upon limited information. So I think it becomes very necessary for us to have a roundtable discussion to move our state forward, to reduce this, but also to educate women in protecting themselves.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next to Mr. Babineau.
Yes, I have a long history of providing legal outreach and accessibility to the court system as a volunteer lawyer years ago, and then I realized that I do a lot of free work anyway. There's a lot of stuff that happens that you just can't allow to continue. One of the things is the Parents in the Law program. Parents in the Law series was one of the first members to participate in this type of outreach, to provide information to the public through Faith House, Women's Foundation most recently, for the availability of services through the legal system short of police involvement. But it's a question of education. It's not a judicial issue, it's a community issue. And education definitely is the key towards bringing the resources to the people who need them. And certainly would be active in participating in any community involvement.
Thank you very much. And finally to Ms. Bro.
Thank you. I do agree with Mr. Babineau that it is definitely a community issue. And on the campaign trail, one afternoon as I was walking, I went to a house and this lady had fled from Florida basically and was living and going to school, putting herself through school. And she was fleeing from her husband who had violently abused her and left her with 3 children. She was putting herself through school while living in Lafayette. I do believe it's a community effort. I served on the steering committee for, it was then known as DAIP, which stands for Domestic Abuse Intervention Project. It's now FAIP, which Family Abuse, I believe, Intervention Project. We implemented programs that are still in place today with the court system. I have a very close working relationship with the police officers, as well as shelters that I have represented women that have been there. I do commit myself to still offering education and assistance to these individuals.
Thank you very much. Okay, we go to the next round in which we start with Mr. Babineau. The question is, prison experience can either harden people or help them change their lives around. One of the factors that can determine which way offenders go is the availability of rehabilitation services in our prisons and jails. What can you do as a judge to build awareness of the resources necessary to fund offender rehabilitation efforts?
Well, rehabilitation is a concept that has to be accepted by the community. It has to be part. Unfortunately, the vast majority of our attitude is governed by the idea of punishment. You serve your time and you get out. I think pretty much what happens on the level as a judge is what you do as a person. Certainly rehabilitation, and it's certainly something that I have been involved with hypnosis and self-hypnosis and self-awareness. I've helped a lot of people. The idea of being able to improve study habits in school, staying in school, etc. Of course, school is available to those who are incarcerated also, and that has to be a part of their rehabilitation. But I think Education is a key, and I'm all for promoting that with in the penal system.
Thank you very much. The same question goes to Ms. Rowe.
As in all situations, communication is the key to most every situation. Right now, Lafayette Parish Correctional Center has a 954-bed facility. If you look at the resources that are available right now at LPCC, there are resources available for those that are incarcerated and resources available for those that are not incarcerated. We already have programs such as the KITE program, the reentry program. We have religious services that are offered to those that are incarcerated. Those that are outside, we have a day reporting program, we have diversion programs, we have ankle monitors, we have rehab programs. The programs are there. What it takes is a network of all the interagencies. It takes communication to maintain people knowing and the knowledge about the services that are already there. There's no need, again, to reinvent the wheel.
Okay, thank you. And finally to Ms. Garrett.
I disagree. The programs are not there, not in our penal institutions. I've spent most of my career doing criminal defense work, and they're not there. They're in our community in Lafayette. The sheriff has done a really good job about creating some rehabilitative things here. But what happens to the DOC inmate that leaves here and goes into Louisiana? They're not there. They're not there to help rehabilitate them, bring them back. The court knows what programs are available, but the court has no control over how they direct the inmate to those programs except to make a recommendation. The federal system is a little bit more adept in doing that and can make recommendations and more in depth in the rehabilitative process. If the inmate doesn't stay here in Lafayette, Louisiana, it's very limited what resources they will get. And our juveniles, we have the highest incarceration rate of juveniles and offenders here in Louisiana. And those juveniles do not get the rehabilitative resources that they need.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the next round, and this one will begin with Ms. Rowe. You each bring a particular skill set to the table as a result of your legal experience. But judges require a broader perspective. What assurances can you give voters that you can find an appropriate balance to serve successfully as a judge?
Well, I like that question. I am the only candidate in this race that brings actual judicial experience to the table. I have served as magistrate for the city of Scott for the past 19 years. Coupled with that, I also have served, as I stated earlier, for the district attorney's office, representing on the prosecution side. I have a solo practice that I established in 1992. I have been a mediator. I have been the FINS coordinator. So what I bring to the table is very simple. I have judicial experience. I'm a prosecutor. I was a defense counsel. I did plaintiff work. I did defense work. I did mediation work. I did appellate work. And I did Supreme Court oral arguments. All of that brought to the table, I do believe, brings the experience necessary for the next judge of Division E.
Thank you. And next is Ms. Garrett.
I don't have judicial experience, but I have time in the courtroom. I have time before juries. I have time before litigants. I have time with lawyers. I have thousands of cases I've handled. I've had experience in federal court before federal judges. I have mediation training. I have oral argument training at the Fifth Circuit and at the state of Louisiana. I have experience. Having a magistrate experience is important. It's good. But having the actual experience to be in that courtroom with somebody's life in your hands and knowing that if you make a mistake, it can change the course of living for that individual, is that what I bring to the table. That's what I bring to the community, and that's what I'll bring as a judge.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Babineau, same question.
Yeah, judges are elected in Louisiana. Quasi-judicial experience is that of administrative hearing officers, magistrates. And so actual judicial experience, I don't think any of us actually have. Anyone can tell you what we need on a level professionally. You have to be 8 years a lawyer. You have to be in good standing with the bar, and you have to live within the 15th Judicial District. I have a unique advantage. I've been able to see what it's like personally behind the bench. My father was judge in Division E for 24 years, and I know the personal commitment it takes, the attitude it has for accommodation, accessibility, being willing to take on the idea that your privacy is pretty much gone. You're a public official.
Thank you very much. Okay. For the next round, we will begin with Ms. Garrett. The question is, and you mentioned this before, or you touched on it, Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in a country with the highest incarceration rate in the world. We lock up more people, but our streets don't seem any safer, and we don't necessarily feel more secure in our homes. What can judges do to create alternative and possibly effective solutions to this issue?
That is a question that I've thought about long and hard. I'm not sure that the court has any of that power. To be perfectly honest, the court can only do that which the court is allowed to do by what the law says and what the legislature has given us to work with. You're right. I hear people all the time that are not feeling safe in their homes. Mental health is on the rise. Juvenile delinquency is on the rise. Crime is on the rise. The answer, I don't know. I can't give you an answer about what can judges do. I can only tell you that we have to start rehabilitating people and not just locking them away. If they're a first offender, we have to look at what resources we have. That's the only way we can start to change.
Thank you very much. Next, the question goes to Mr. Babineau.
Yes, I agree with that. The idea is we can only do so much with what we're provided. If we have an issue with the the way that the law is enforced or whatever, then we should be running for the legislature and change the law. We're obligated to pursue the mentality. And unfortunately, the mentality is domestic issues are pretty much in the same boat as in any violent criminal activity. And our criminal justice system is our response to it. So we need to change our community attitude from punishment and replace it with rehabilitation and healing instead if we want to see a significant change. I think personal responsibility and self-discipline are something that we need to instill in our children from very, very young and become a nation of responsibility rather than just rights.
Thank you, Mr. Babineau. And finally, Ms. Rose.
Thank you. The judiciary, as I've stated earlier, has a unique role, and we are somewhat limited in programs that we can actually establish. However, I think education is the key component to all of this. In working with the DA's office, we have a truancy court that has been established for over 12 years now. And the amount of children that are truant and the reasons why they are truant is baffling, and it doesn't get any better. Again, education is a key component. I believe it starts at home. I believe that the judges should take a role in aiding those families, communicating and working with the school system in order to get services that are desperately needed, such as the mental health court that we did touch on. Addressing this in 1 minute is quite difficult.
Yes, and I apologize for that. Okay, but these are all very important, and I think you're all doing a great job. Okay, only 2 questions left. You're doing great. Okay, first to Mark Babineau. Lafayette has one of the highest juvenile incarceration rates in the state, which means we send a lot of kids to jail. The result is that we end up with a lot of hardened young people who may be more likely to engage in a lifetime of crime. Is there anything that the courts can do to help break that cycle?
The court system is the cycle. And it's our community response to the issue. Unfortunately, I believe in I've been a school board member now since 2007 and very, very active and aware of the discipline issues that are involved in our educational system. According to Mr. Boudreau, I think at one point in time we only had 8 spaces available for the juveniles who really needed the help. So it's up to the community itself to be able to say, well, this is how we want to handle this situation and invest the money and time in rehabilitating the children who need the help. A lot of these are overaged. Some of these children do not have the support at home that the vast majority do have, and to rectify that, I just don't know. It's a really good question.
Okay, thank you. Next, Ms. Garrett.
Yes. As it relates to the juvenile, probably up until about maybe 3 years ago, Lafayette, not only Louisiana, but Lafayette had the highest incarceration rate in the state of Louisiana of juvenile offenders. We have juvenile offenders that are 15 years old that commit crimes of rape or murder or a heinous crime, and they're sent over to my division, which is the adult division. We've got to stop that. 15 years old, yes, they shouldn't be committing such heinous crimes, but their brains are developed quite frankly. There are avenues and methods by which we have to try and approach those young people before they get out of hand. We no longer have CAPS in Lafayette Parish. We no longer have other resources to get those young offenders and to facilitate them before they get to the adult track. I think it's education, and we have to start moving in a different direction to reach those young people before they get out of hand.
Thank you. And same question, Ms. Rowe.
Okay, this is what I've done for 19 years. I've handled the juvenile caseload for the city and the parish of Lafayette as the juvenile assistant district attorney. Unfortunately, and I will say that again and stress it, unfortunately, we have filed in the year 2013 over 1,000 petitions, and that is of delinquency petitions. We have a juvenile detention home that's located right here in Lafayette that has only 32 bed spaces available, and that's for both boys and girls. However, our system has drastically changed in the last 4 to 5 years, and we have come now from a system of incarceration to offering services to the children. And our juvenile system is based solely on rehabilitation services. We have implemented the juvenile drug court, which has been in operation since 2002. I was one of the founders of it. We also have placed the JAC Center, which is the Juvenile Assessment Center. That became available in August of 2013, which I was also instrumental in doing. We have the services. It just takes time to get those started.
Thank you very much. All right, this is the final question before your closing remarks. I think it's a good question. We're going to start with Ms. Garrett. What made you want to become a lawyer? And once you became a lawyer, what made you now want to become a judge?
I'll never forget it. I was 10. I was 10 and I was sitting in front of the television station, and I remember seeing Thurgood Marshall. And they had been arguing separate but equal. They had been arguing equality for all. And I was amazed at the power that lawyers had to change the world. And as I watched that, I always thought I would one day be a lawyer. But instead, I taught school for a while, saying, no, not me. I'm a girl. You know, they didn't encourage us to go to law school. They said, you could be a teacher. And then I saw him as a Supreme Court justice. And then I saw the women. And as time passed, I said, I could have the power to help change my community. I could have the power to help change things around me. And so I wanted to become a judge, and then become a lawyer and then a judge.
Thank you so much. Next, that question goes to Mr. Babineau.
Yes, it was, my dad was a lawyer, my uncle was a lawyer. It was an opportunity. I always felt that that was my place, to be able to help people through their daily lives. I was able to, over the years, I've been able to help people bilingually, both in English and in French. The old people, if you want to call it, we still do wills in French and we translate them. There's a cultural aspect. There's the unique idea that Louisiana has a civil code. The rest of the country has common law tradition, and comparative analysis of the different legal systems. I would like to be able to just continue service to the public as a judge.
Thank you very much. And finally, Ms. Bro.
Thank you. I was brought up in a family where there was no question that once we graduated from high school that you went on to college. My father always told me that education was something that could never be taken away from you. And I instill that in my children, that no matter what field that you do pursue, that you get the education. I went on, I got my undergraduate from UL, and it was in political science. I then went on and got my paralegal degree, and that's when I guess the light bulb came on after working for a firm in Houma, Louisiana, and in the role of a true paralegal and preparing the attorney that I worked with firsthand to take matters to trial. After working with that firm for less than 8 months, I decided to go on to law school, and the education has just opened doors for me. Service to the community, education, and just a job that I truly love.
Thank you very much. Wonderful job. We have reached the point, all of you, wonderful jobs. Interesting hearing your backgrounds. We have reached the point in the forum when the candidates will each make a closing statement. Candidates have 2 minutes each. We will hear from the candidates in reverse alphabetical order, starting with Ms. Garrett.
Thank you. It has been my privilege and my honor and a most humble experience, this journey. When I started moving forward and deciding I was going to run for judge, I was motivated by faith, family, and community service. I believe that those things uniquely placed together can change community, can change state, can change the world. I believe that family is the most important thing that we have. I believe that our faith in our community, the working together, is what moves us beyond ourselves. I've been a lawyer for 21 years in this community. I have lived in this community all of my life, except when I went to law school. I've raised 5 children here and now have 4 grandchildren. I have served as a litigator, as a defender, as a community service person. I have served my community. I have a passion for the law. I have a passion for people. I love people. And I did not realize how much until I started knocking on doors, and how I've met old friends. I've been in the worst and the best times with some of my clients. I carry them wherever I go, and I truly love the practice of law. I ask for your vote and your support on, actually we're in early voting right now. What a wonderful opportunity to address the community. Early voting began October 21st and through October 28th. And please, I ask for your support, your prayers, and your vote on November 4th for Valerie Gotch-Garrett.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Bro. Your closing remarks.
Thank you. In the opening statement, I was able to give you a brief glimpse of who I am personally, and that is a wife of 22 years, a mother of 2 children, a sister with 4 brothers, and a daughter to parents who gave me this opportunity by education to be here today. I leave you now in closing and give you the vision of where I hope to take me on November the 4th. I leave with you 3 qualities, and the first quality of that is respect. And that's respect of all litigants, from pro se litigants to lawyers. I leave you with the quality of fairness. I truly believe that every party that comes before the court just simply wants their day in court and wants to be treated fairly. And I leave you with the quality of judicial temperament and judicial integrity that I truly believe that I possess. As I stated in one of the forums that we had about a week ago, I read an article by Sandra Day O'Connor, who was a Supreme Court Justice. And if I can quote her for just a second, she says, and she quotes, "It shows that all of us judges are engaged in upholding the Constitution and the rule of law. We have that common responsibility." And she's addressing that article on the significance of the black robe. And the significance of that robe, in my opinion, is a dual factor. And the first is we do have the obligation to uphold the Constitution and the laws as written. But we also have that separate side when we wear the robe to be fair, to be compassionate, and to be a listener. And I truly believe that I bring to this table compassion. You have to have a stern hand, but you also have to have a soft heart. I ask that you consider me on November the 4th, and I thank you, and vote Michelle Bro, number 60.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Babineau.
Well, in case you didn't know it by now, I'm also school board member. I have been since 2007. I consider it a public service. Also, a judicial position is one of public service. It's, I've been getting a lot of response from a little comment that I make. I've been a lawyer for 36 years and they still call it practice. I guess I'll get it right one day. I think the whole idea of the word practice, legal practice, is the idea that you have to be adaptable. We as a judiciary, a judicial system, have to be adaptable to the needs of the community within the parameters that are set by law. I bring with me, I think, the complete broad spectrum from administrative law, civil law, criminal law, former law clerk, which is somewhat like a lawyer with a judge for a client, administrative hearing officer for the city of Lafayette. So I think I've been able to demonstrate that I'm capable and committed to making the type of open-minded, informed, level-headed, and even-handed decisions that are going to be required of a district judge. And I ask for your support in that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, candidates, all of you, for joining us this evening. And good luck with your campaigns.
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that you now feel empowered to make a more informed decision about which 15th Judicial District candidate in Division E meets your expectations. Please do not forget that early voting began today, that is Tuesday, October 21st, and continues through next Tuesday, October 28th. Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. The Lafayette DPEC encourages everyone to verify their polling places as some have recently changed. Thanks to all of you for watching. See you at the polls, and good night. Okay, we're out.
Great, thank you.